Lavender is easily one of my favorite fragrances, and so it was one of the very first plants I decided that I wanted to plant in my hot, sunny garden bed here at my house in Pennsylvania. And so I wanted to do a little demonstration of planting lavender because it's such a beautiful plant. It's such a popular plant, but there's a number of things that people will get wrong from time and again that leave your lavender looking a little bit bare or not as good as you thought it should. First of all, it's a nice, crisp fall day. I find that fall is the best time to plant a lot of our favorite perennials because right now the air is cool, but the soil is still warm, so it allows the plants to really just acclimate into the soil without being stressed by that hot summer sun and that need for constant watering in order to kind of nourish those baby roots that are just trying to grow. Planted in the fall is a great time because over the winter, they would be going dormant regardless. So what you're allowing the plant to create its root system. It's not going to produce much growth on top from now until springtime, but next spring it's going to have a major jump ahead of any plants that you might be planting in the springtime. So when it comes to lavender, the first thing you need to think about is the location of where it's being planted. I am in a very sunny location right now. It's kind of this, I timed it so that the sun is behind some trees to record this video, but this is one of the sunniest areas in my garden. As such, it's a place where during the summer that sun is beating down all the time, and so I need to plant plants here that are quite, that can handle the sun and quite drought tolerant, and that is perfect location for lavender. So it needs a lot of sun, at least a half a day of sun, but the more sun the better. And you can also see that this is kind of on a slope, so this is not an area where water is typically going to pool up. So you need to have really good drainage. You can also see there it kind of like falls way back there, so any water that might fall in the summertime during our heavy summer storms is going to eventually flush out and it's not going to stay puddled up. You don't want that to happen. And then the next thing that we want to consider is, its companion plants. So I have this lavender, I'm planting it with some butterfly bush, some bearded iris, and some dianthus. They're all very sun-loving, drought-tolerant, heat-loving plants. And then the next thing we want to think about is spacing. So right here I have a Grosso lavender, and this typically will, in its full growth, it'll be about 3 feet wide and about 3 feet tall. So I've planted it I'm going to be planting this about 2 to 3 feet away from this other Grosso lavender. You don't want to plant lavender too close. Oftentimes I'll see lavender planted like 8 to 12 inches away, and what happens is they just kind of suffocate into one another. Lavender is a plant that needs to have very good airflow. That means proper spacing is very essential. So, mark it out. This is about 2.5, 3 feet. So they're going to be just touching, but they're not going to be like hugging. So that's a good way of thinking about it. And so then the next thing is, let's plant it. So I have this 4-inch pot. 4-inch pots are my favorite for planting because it's very easy. All you need is your little hand trowel. So I have really nice composted soil here at my garden. You can also see I'm planting it next to this because it's kind of gonna like brush into this old stump that I should probably just get removed, but for now it's gonna hide this stump, and that's exactly what I want it to do. Okay, so you dig a little hole. It takes about 13 seconds. If you don't have really great soil, that's okay too. If you have very heavy clay soil, you need to amend it. You need to amend it probably with some sand and some compost. Here I have nice soil, so I'm not going to amend it with anything, but if you have to choose between a very sandy soil or a very clayey soil, these are not going to do well in heavy clay. They will perform well in sandy soils. It's like their native, France, but they need to have very, very good draining. You can also add rocks, like pebbles to your soil, and that's also going to help just enhance that ability for the water to enter and then flow out. Okay, so now that we know where we need to plant it, how we want to plant it, you pop it right out of the pot. You can see these beautiful roots. Now, if I were to just plant it just like this, it's gonna stay in that sweater. You know, this, imagine like it's like in a sweater right now, but we want it to grow free. We want it to assimilate into the soil. So how do we do that? How do we help that happen? We take our fingers and we just literally, we break it apart. You see this? I'm just like breaking this apart all the way. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna allow, it kind of like, it gives a signal to the plant that, all right, we have new home. We need to kind of like make our way into that new home. So let's start growing. If you didn't do that, it's going to be, it might not even ever grow. You know, I've seen plenty of occasions where it just like doesn't do anything because they're just like stuck. They're stuck in that formation of the old pot. Okay, so once we do that, we're going to just backfill it with the soil. And if you do have mulch in your beds already, that's great, but make sure you leave a bit of a ring around it. You don't want the mulch growing right up into the plant. Okay, so I have it planted. That was very easy. You can see, okay, you can see that the plant is flush with the ground. It's not protruding up above the surface of the ground, and it's not too deep either. That's what we want. Now what I do is I take my shears and I cut this back. So in the first 3 years of growing lavender, before they reach their full growth, it's very important you prune them back about halfway in the fall after they finish flowering. And then in the springtime, prune it halfway back again. So you're really doing a lot of good pruning in those first 3 years, cutting it back to create the right structure for the plant. If you don't do that, what ends up happening is you get those big bald spots in your lavender, and that is the worst thing. It looks so ugly. And at that point, it's already become, past fixing, so you may as well start over. So I always will prune back my lavender right upon planting. And then in springtime, around mid-March, I will come out here and I'll get, because it may grow a little bit, and then from now until then. So if it does, I'm going to cut it back again, and that's going to allow it to resettle, reestablish itself for that new growing season, and it's going to make it stay bushy. It's going to stay compact that way. It's not going to kind of splay all over the place, which you see that all the time with lavender. So we want to have pretty lavender plants, so we cut it back now. And then from here, of course, you need to give it some water. Water it in well. So you can see the water is going to soak in, and it's going to assimilate, and it's going to help the roots to, find their place, find their peace. And now because it's fall, we're going to be having our fall rains as usual. Unless I have more than a week without any rainfall, I'm not going to water these again. I'm going to let Mother Nature's rain water them, and that will be sufficient. That's why we love about planting in the fall. It's very easy, very straightforward, and you're not out babying, watering your plants every single day like you would if you planted them in the spring. So that's kind of the benefits of planting your lavender in the fall, and then next spring it's going to start coming out. Summertime, I'm going to have some beautiful flowers, and it's going to be a sight to behold. Anyways, I'm Devin, and I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a thing or two. I'll catch you later.